In this video, I'm going to show you 3 ways you can hide your lighting reflections: composition, light placement, and light shaping. First and foremost, one way to avoid reflections is turning off all the lights in the space you are filming in. The darker the space is, the less reflections you'll have to deal with. An easy way to avoid catching reflections is by simply changing the composition. This can be either having a tighter shot in order to show less of the windows behind your subject, or moving the camera so that it's filming at an angle to the windows instead of directly in front of them. If I have this shot of me sitting directly in front of the window, you can clearly see the light in the reflection. But if I move the camera and now turn the shot into a 3/4 angle, the reflection is gone. Now let's say you have a client that has a nice background from their room or something, and they really want to show it off. They want to film head on, maybe something like this, then you need to work with lighting placement in order to avoid those reflections. In this particular situation, when the camera is directly facing the windows, any portion of the light source that's facing the window will be seen. So one of the best ways to avoid reflections when you are faced with a situation like this, assuming you are filming with a softbox, is to opt for split lighting. This is when half of the face is hit with light and the other half is in shadow. You want to aim for split lighting because you could rotate the light to face your subject and not the window. So notice, once I turn this light towards the window, the blackness of the softbox isn't enough to cover the light from reflecting in the window. So I'm able to turn this light all the way this way, and that light is still able to hit me without being reflected in the window. Now, you could get a bit more leeway if you use a grid with your softbox, but we're gonna cover that in the shaping portion of this video. Now, the problem with split lighting is that it can create a very dramatic look on the face, which if that's what you're going for, great. But if not, then there are 2 things you can do to lessen the contrast. You can add a fill light on the other side, making sure that light also doesn't cause a reflection on the window. You can also use a bounce board as long as the back side of it is not reflective. If both sides of that bounce board are white, then inevitably it's going to cause a reflection in the window no matter how you turn it. But if there's a dark side to it, you may be able to maneuver that bounce board to a point where it's not reflecting in the window, but still bouncing some of that light onto your face. The other thing you could do is move your key light slightly in front of your subject. This will help wrap some of that light around your subject's face since you're allowing more of the surface area of your softbox to illuminate that face. The larger your softbox is, the more light you'll be able to wrap around your subject's face. Now, if your angle is tight enough, you can also get away with paramount lighting. This is where the light is placed in front of your subject and slightly above them. This lighting can work with the right combination of focal length and the height of your light. But you don't want to get the light too high, otherwise you're going to start to create those unflattering raccoon eyes. But you do need a little bit of that height in order to avoid catching that reflection. The tighter your focal length is, however, the less height you'll need to get this look. And then finally, when it comes to lighting placement, if you have the room for it, just move the light source far enough away so that it's not in the frame anymore. There are 2 things to consider when you try this method. Number 1, the wider your focal length is, the further away you're gonna have to move your light. And number 2, the further away you move your light, the larger your light source needs to be in order to maintain a nice, soft quality. And that's because the size of the light source in relation to the distance from the subject's face will affect how soft that light is. The final way to mitigate reflections on windows is controlling the light. Now, one of the tools you can use is a grid. Like I mentioned earlier, if you are going with split lighting, you can use a grid to help block just a little bit more of that light, which will allow you to turn that light just slightly more towards your face so that you can get a bit more wrapping. The other way you can shape light is by flagging it out. Flags are just black pieces of non-reflective fabric that you can use to block the light from hitting specific parts of your shot. But if you're on a budget, you can also use black cardboard or poster board. The whole point is to use a black material to block a portion of the light being reflected. The smaller the amount of light you have to block, the easier it'll be. But keep in mind that you may be starting to cut the light that's actually hitting your talent if it's too close to their face. If that starts to happen, you can try compensating for the loss by increasing the brightness of your light. And that about covers the different ways you can avoid showing reflections from windows. I know most of the examples in this video had the camera pointing towards the windows in a wider angle, and that was just to show you what the worst case scenario can look like. If you are able to either shoot at an angle or at a much tighter shot, it gets easier to avoid catching those reflections. If you guys got value from this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If there's anything that I missed or something that you would have done differently, go ahead and leave your thoughts below. Thanks as always for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next one. Happy filming.